I was sitting on my couch last Tuesday night, wrapped up in a blanket, half watching an old sitcom rerun and scrolling through my phone. It was the kind of quiet you only get when you're home alone, when the world outside feels muted and your house seems almost too still. I live on the edge of town, tucked into a row of old houses that have seen better days. Most of my neighbors are older folks, so the neighborhood doesn't get much activity after dark. At exactly 11:28 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown caller. I don't usually pick up unknown numbers, but something about the silence in my house, the eerie, thin stillness, made me answer without thinking. Hello. At first, there was nothing but breathing. Slow, steady. Then, stay inside. I froze. The voice was male, hushed, like he was whispering into the receiver. Before I could ask who it was, the line went dead. I stared at my phone for a second, my brain trying to play catch-up. A prank? Some creep? I checked the locks on my doors and turned on every light in the house, suddenly aware of how empty the rooms around me felt. I'm not usually paranoid, but the call left me uneasy. That's when the sirens started. Not one or two, but dozens of them, wailing and echoing from different directions, filling the night with urgency. I live a few miles from the nearest police station, so the sound was strange. Like every cop car in the city had suddenly roared to life. I looked out my front window, expecting to see a row of flashing lights speeding down the street. Nothing. The road outside was empty, bathed in the sickly yellow glow of the street lamps. But the sirens didn't stop. They only grew louder. And then, this is when I started to get scared. Something moved at the edge of my yard. It was quick, almost too quick to process. A shadow darted across the grass, heading toward the side of my house. My stomach flipped as I backed away from the window, locking eyes with my reflection. The sirens abruptly stopped. Silence again. I reached for my phone to call the police, only to realize that my hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. But as soon as I pressed 9, something slammed into my front door. I jumped. It wasn't a knock or a kick. It was heavier, like someone had hurled their entire body against it. Another hit. Harder. I stumbled backward, clutching the phone in a death grip. My first thought was to run out the back, but the second I turned toward the kitchen, I heard it. The sound of footsteps. They were inside. I froze mid-step, every muscle in my body locked up like someone had flipped a switch. Footsteps. Not loud. Not heavy. Just slow, deliberate steps moving across the wooden floor of my kitchen. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. My brain screamed at me to run, but I was rooted to the spot, like a deer staring down headlights. How did they get in? The doors were locked. The windows too. I checked them myself. Yet now there was something, inside my house. The footsteps stopped. I strained my ears, trying to pinpoint where they were. The kitchen? The hall? Then, out of nowhere, the sound of a single chair dragging across the tile. That slow, horrible scrape made my skin crawl. My mind raced. Is he waiting for me to come in there? Watching. Listening. My phone was still in my hand, the 9 glowing faintly on the screen. I finished dialing, my thumb hammering the 1 twice. I pressed the phone to my ear, praying to hear the dispatcher's voice. Instead, I heard this, "I told you to stay inside," the same voice from the earlier call. It was calm, almost amused. My heart sank. The line went dead. I felt like the walls were closing in on me. My legs finally obeyed, and I bolted upstairs. My feet hit the steps like thunder, and I dove into my bedroom, slamming the door shut behind me. My hands scrambled for the lock, twisting it hard. I spun around, trying to think, trying to breathe. I needed a weapon. My eyes darted to the nightstand. There was nothing useful, just a half-empty water bottle and my keys. The only other option was the closet. But before I could move, there was a sound. Thump. The unmistakable sound of a foot landing on the bottom step. Whoever or whatever was downstairs was coming up. Thump. I grabbed my keys, clutching them like they were a lifeline. I backed away from the door, my eyes glued to the crack underneath. Thump. They were halfway up now. I could hear their weight shifting on the old steps, each creak and groan taunting me. I thought about hiding, but where? Under the bed? In the closet? It didn't matter. Whoever this was, they already knew I was here. Thump. The footsteps stopped at the top of the stairs. My bedroom door was the closest one to the landing. My heart pounded so loud it was all I could hear. Then, ever so faintly, I heard breathing. Slow and heavy. Right outside the door. I dropped to the floor and crawled toward the window. My hands fumbled with the latch, slick with sweat. I could feel tears welling up as I silently begged the window to open faster. The breathing outside the door stopped. Then came the sound of my bedroom doorknob turning. It rattled once, twice, then bang. The door shook as something heavy hit it. I screamed and shoved the window open, climbing onto the ledge. I glanced down. It was a 10-foot drop to the backyard, but I didn't care. I swung my legs out just as the door splintered open behind me. I didn't look back. Couldn't. I let go and fell. The landing knocked the wind out of me, but I scrambled to my feet, ignoring the pain shooting up my ankle. I ran, no, sprinted, across my yard and into the dark alley behind my house. My bare feet slapped against the pavement, my lungs burning as I pushed myself forward. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to go. I didn't stop running until I saw the red and blue lights. A patrol car sat idling at the end of the alley. I staggered toward it, waving my arms and yelling like a maniac. The officer jumped out, hand on his gun, but I didn't care. I fell to my knees in front of him, sobbing, screaming, begging for help. Please, someone's in my house. There. The officer held up a hand to calm me. Whoa, slow down. You're safe now. Just take a breath. I tried to explain, but my words were jumbled. I turned back toward the alley, toward my house, half expecting to see someone. Something. Standing in the shadows. But the alley was empty. The officer called it in and helped me into the car. As we pulled up to my house, more patrol cars were already arriving, their lights painting my yard in red and blue. I stayed in the car as they went in. Flashlights cut through the darkness as officers swept through the rooms, clearing every inch of the house. After what felt like hours, the lead officer, Officer Lang, I think his name was, came back to the car. His face was blank, unreadable. Are you sure someone was inside? He asked. I stared at him. Of course I'm sure. I heard them. They broke my door. Lang held up his hand. That's the thing. The house is empty. All the doors and windows were locked from the inside. There's no sign of forced entry. And your bedroom door is perfectly intact. I blinked. No, that's not possible. It was smashed in. I heard it break. Lang gave me a look that I couldn't read. We didn't find anything, miss, but we'll file a report. Maybe you had a prowler and they ran off. I didn't argue. I didn't have the energy. But as the officers packed up and I sat there shivering in the back of the patrol car, I kept thinking about the phone call. I told you to stay inside. How did they know I was home? And if the house was empty, who made that call? They didn't let me back in the house that night. I didn't argue. I wouldn't have gone back in even if they'd begged me to. The police offered to take me to the station so I could calm down. And that's exactly where I ended up, sitting in a stiff chair, clutching a lukewarm coffee, staring at the cracks in the linoleum floor while officers mumbled to each other in hushed tones. They didn't believe me. I could see it on their faces. A prowler who ran off, one of them had said earlier. But they didn't see the look in my eyes when I told them about the footsteps, about the phone call, about the breathing right outside my door. Officer Lang eventually sat across from me again, holding a small notepad. Miss, I'm going to ask you one last time. Are you sure you didn't imagine what happened? I glared at him. No, I didn't imagine anything. Someone was in my house. I heard them. I saw the door. Except there's no damage to the door. Or anywhere else. Lang's voice was calm, but there was something behind his eyes. Doubt. Suspicion. Before I could argue, another officer stepped into the room. Lang, you need to see this. Lang gave me a long look, then stood and followed the officer out. I sat alone for a moment, the sounds of the station. Phones ringing, boots scuffing, radios crackling, echoing faintly in my ears. Then something strange happened. The station grew quiet. Too quiet. I looked around, frowning. The muffled hum of voices, the low thud of movement. It was gone, like someone had put a blanket over the entire building. That's when I noticed the light above me flickering. The fluorescent bulb buzzed angrily, casting quick shadows against the wall, and then re-thering. My head snapped to the desk phone across the room. It was ringing. No one was there to answer it. It rang again, and again. Each tone drilled into my skull, rattling my nerves. My eyes locked on the caller ID. Unknown caller. My blood turned to ice. I stood up, backing toward the far wall. I told myself to ignore it, to leave the room and find someone. Anyone. But before I could move, the ringing stopped. Silence. Then the intercom crackled to life. I told you to stay inside. The voice was soft, almost playful, like someone sharing a joke. I stared at the ceiling speaker, my body frozen. I ran. I don't remember bursting through the door or stumbling into the hallway. I don't remember shouting for help or the confused looks on the officers' faces as they turned to me. I barely even remember Officer Lang grabbing me by the shoulders and yelling, "Calm down!" All I knew was the voice. That voice. "I'm not crazy," I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. "Someone's following me." They called me. Lang's radio crackled, cutting me off. "Lang, you're gonna want to see this. It's from the house." We locked eyes. "Come on," he muttered, motioning for me to follow. The footage was pulled from my home security cameras. I'd forgotten I even had them. They were cheap ones I'd installed last year for peace of mind. Lang and I stood in the small tech room, staring at the grainy black and white feed playing on a monitor. The timestamp read 11:32 p.m. The camera showed my living room. First, nothing seemed off. The room was still empty, lit only by the glow of the TV I'd left on. Then movement. A dark figure stepped into the frame from the hallway. I stopped breathing. It wasn't just someone walking. It was like they slid into view, their head low, arms hanging unnaturally. The figure stopped in the center of the room and turned toward the camera. I leaned closer. The figure was wrong. Its proportions were off. Its limbs too long. Its head tilted at an impossible angle, like its neck had been snapped. It didn't move like a person. It just stood there, staring at the camera. Then, slowly, it raised one hand and waved. I stumbled back from the monitor, my heart pounding. What is that?" Lang didn't answer. His face had gone pale, his mouth slightly open. The figure on the screen turned its head, no, its entire upper body, toward the hallway, toward the stairs, toward me. We watched as it glided toward the staircase, vanishing from view. The footage cut out a second later. "Jesus Christ," Lang whispered. I shook my head. I told you someone was in the house." Lang turned to the other officer. "Get a team back to that house now." I didn't go back to the house. I didn't want to. Lang insisted I stay at a local motel under police watch while they investigated. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I knew it wasn't over. They'd find nothing at the house. No forced entry. No fingerprints. No evidence. Just like before. At 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text message. It was a photo. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop myself. My thumb trembled as I opened it. It was a picture of me, sitting on the motel bed, taken from the window. Below it, a message. "You should have stayed inside." The police never found anyone. They searched the house, the motel, the surrounding area, nothing. The footage from my security cameras disappeared. The calls stopped. The text stopped. But I moved. I don't live alone anymore. And every night, as I lock my doors and check my windows, I hear that voice in my head. "I told you to stay inside."